Alright, how's it going everybody? So, in today's video, I'm going to quickly show you how we can create some slightly more complex, unique geometry from curves. So as you can see here, I've got just a regular old mesh, but it started out as a curve. If you don't know much about curves, don't worry, I'm going to show you. But before I begin, if you'd like to more accurately follow along and kind of build what I'm building here, you can get access to this here blend file over on my Patreon. It's available to the public. Have at it. So, let's get started. Okay, so to start, I'm going to go ahead and move this up on the Z just for like a little bit of better perspective here. All right, then I'm going to Shift A and I'm going to bring in a Bezier or Bezier, I don't know, curve, Bezier. And then tab into edit mode, and immediately you're going to see this. If you're not familiar with curves, you're going to be like, well, what the hell? These, I'm going to give you like a quick rundown on it. These are what we call handles when it comes to a curve. They influence the curvature, right? It's a handle of the curve. Now you'll see that with nothing selected, they just look like the vertices on either end. If we select it, we see we have these two vertices on either end of the central vertice there. Now, by default, these are set to aligned, which means as I move this center one, or I guess, no matter what, when you move the center one, the other ones kind of move with. But if I move one of these ones on the end, everything else stays in alignment with it. I can move it in, and if you're moving it in, like I'd have to, I guess, like take one that's semi, like actually lined up along the X. If I move it in like perfectly in along the X, you won't see anything going on, but you can also just take it and scale it in like that. And everything you do, from scaling, rotating, grabbing it, it's all going to influence this. Now, if we select one of these handles and we hit V, we can bring up the set handle type menu. Now, as I said, by default, I believe they're set to aligned. I don't know what the difference between free and vector is, so I'm just going to stick with free. They both seem to have the same functionality. I don't really know. I'm not that guy. I don't know. But with free, we could grab this and we could kind of move it independently of the other points of the handle, right? Now, you're not going to see this point have any influence over anything, and that's because the curve does not continue on past this handle. If it did, like say I move it out like this, then I could take this, and then now it has influence over something, right? Now, I prefer, you know, especially like starting out and getting used to working with the handles, just keep it on aligned. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this vertice here. I'm also in top orthographic with 7 on the number pad. I prefer to work with my curves in orthographic views, pretty much at all times. Now I'm going to rotate it on the Z, and I'm going to just hold control while I rotate it until it snaps in just like that, nice and flat, and then we can take that and scale it in. We'll take this other one and scale that in as well. Tab back into object mode, and I'm going to move it up and move it over on the X. It's kind of hard to see when you're moving on the X because it is just a flat line, but you just gotta kind of work with it there. Doesn't matter. We can also in edit mode, but you know, move it around, but I just want to get it kind of in position there. I actually think I'll take it down like a little bit on the Z here, just to kind of give me a little bit of room when working with our curvature here. So I'm going to take this handle here, I'm going to bring it over on the X. I could probably even scale that in a little bit more. And I'm going to hit E to extrude, and that's going to bring out another handle, right? And we're just going to bring it up, something like right in here. And then we're going to rotate it, and I'm in front orthographic. The reason I say to stick into this front orthographic, or into orthographic views, is because if I look at this from the side, you can see that that rotation I did rotated perfectly along the Y with no other influence from anything else. If I was in perspective, if I one time forgot to specify the axis that I was rotating along, which doesn't happen too often, but you know, it happens. If I forgot and I rotated and I I thought I was, or even like this, I thought I was looking at it pretty front on and I rotated, then if I come into the front view, you can see it's starting to kind of offset a little bit. Now it's, you know, it's getting a little skewed there. So I like to work in orthographic views, so I can still specify rotate on the Y, but I don't have to. I can if I want, but it's going to keep it nice and straight and even, because curves can become volatile. And so just kind of, you know, once you get more used to them, it takes time, I'm not going to lie. This is going to be a difficult one to follow along with. In fact, actually, that's why this one shouldn't be too difficult, because I'm going to keep it simple. We're not going to do anything too crazy, right? So to start, just kind of get the general curvature here. From this one here, extrude out up here, we can rotate that in, and then extrude out another one. You can rotate that in just so you get something like this, because we're going to make some adjustments here. For starters, we'll scale this in, and we're going to rotate this like 90 degrees so it's nice and flat like this. I'm going to bring it in on the X so it butts right up against this wall here. Then I can even take, if I want, I could take these two here, holding shift to select those two, right click and subdivide, add in another handle here. I could rotate this on the Z till it gets nice and flat like that, and I can bring this up like this. So I've got like a nice flat edge there as well, right? I can do something like that. Or if you know, if you wanted, you could just take this handle and have brought it, like bring this one closer or something. You know, it'll give you, you'll have a little bit more or like less of a flat edge against this, and it'll start to curve off like this. And that's fine, you know, so that way like you maintain this curvature here, just whatever you feel like looks good. So it looks like I can bring this up a little bit, something like that. That looks pretty good for now. I'm not gonna get all super crazy with it. We're gonna keep it nice and simple. So I'm gonna grab this one and bring it in on the X. I'm gonna scale it in, and then again, I'm gonna, with this one selected, I'll select this one here, and I'm gonna right click and subdivide. I'm gonna take this one and scale it in. And now I'm gonna go bring this in on the X, because if you see, if I take it out, you see we've got right here, whoops. You can see right in here, we've got like this sharp kind of elbow there. Now right now it doesn't, you know, there's no depth, it's just a line, but we're getting there. We're gonna add some depth to it in a moment. And when we do, this is gonna look horrendous. So what we can do to kind of like correct that is just move, like bring in another handle and move it in, and you can see, sorry, I gotta turn off Windows notifications, it's really annoying. But as we move this in, you can see that it kind of evens out that and kind of gives a nice little smooth curvature there. So we can do something like that. And then I'm also going to take this, and it looks like I'll want to, or I could take this end here actually. Yeah, I'll take this end because I want it to be nice and level all the way across there. So it looks like I basically just want to bring this up until it's like right about here. Something like that. Yeah, so it's all along that line there. That looks pretty good. Now, with this one selected, what we'll do, and I think I'm satisfied with this distance. I could bring it in a little bit more or something, but I'm going to leave it here for now because right now just focus on getting the curves, and then we can adjust the length as we go on later. So right now I'm going to E to extrude. I'm going to bring that up, rotate it. A lot of these movements I use snapping, so I'm holding control for a lot of this rotation and movement. So we'll just, we'll actually rotate this out like this and just scale it out, and then we can bring in another handle with E to extrude, right, and scale this one in. So it looks like we're gonna want to bring this back and scale it in, bring it back a little bit more. This is the kind of struggle of working with curves. You just got to find a way where, you know, you got to adjust the rotation and the alignment, all right, to just kind of find something that looks pretty good. So I think I'm actually going to go with something a little smaller like this. I think that looks pretty good. I'm not mad at it at all. So if you get, once you get something like this, right, this is the general kind of shape we're going for here. What we'll do from here is we'll shift A, and we're going to add in another Bezier, or Bezier? I don't know, however you say it. Tab into edit mode. I'm going to grab this one, rotate it on the Z till it's nice and flat, just like that. We can scale these in a little bit. Now what we're doing with this second curve is, if I select this curve and I come down here to the curve properties tab, we have geometry, and within geometry we have bevel. And for bevel, we can add some depth here, and you'll see that's going to fill it out, right? I'm going to leave it at 0 because what we're going to use is an object. We can use an object to determine the the bevel, like the depth profile of this curve, and we're going to use another curve to determine that. And I'll kind of give you as simplistic of an explanation of how that works as I possibly can. And then on top of that, we also have taper, but we'll get into that in a moment. I just wanted to point that out because I will be referencing it in a moment. So what we'll do with this is we're going to look at from top orthographic, which is going to be a little weird at first, but we're going to look at this as if right now, imagine right now as we're looking at this curve, right, this flat line here, imagine what we're looking at is actually looking down the barrel end of the other curve that we made. And currently it's flat, right? This is flat. There's no depth to it. It's like a piece of paper. And this is what we're doing. We're looking at that edge of it, but we want to add some depth. And so that's how we're going to visualize this, keeping it just like this, flat down here, and we're going to work going along the y-axis here with both of these selected. I'm going to right click and subdivide. We can grab this and we can scale it in a little bit, and then I'll bring it up on the y, something, I don't know, we'll go something, it doesn't really matter because we'll end up adjusting this, but for now I'll go like that, somewhere right about there. So now we've got like this kind of little mountaintop looking thing. And now what we'll do is we'll come up here to, I don't know if you have to have everything selected, but you can do that. Just hit A to select all the handles, and then come up here to curve, and then we're going to go to toggle cyclic. And so that's going to make this, instead of it being a closed linear line where it started here and ended here, it's going to fill in this line here. So now it's just kind of loops around. And so now, if you think back to what I had said a moment ago, where imagine what we're staring at right now is we're looking down the barrel end of our other curve, right? So like if this were round, like this would, I don't know, I've never seen a triangle shaped bar that I can think of, but if you've seen like a pipe, you know, so if this was like a rounded shape, that's what you're looking at. Like imagine you're looking through a pipe, you know? And so that's what we're doing. We're building out the depth of our curve, but we're doing it working in a weird kind of perspective. This is how this works. So we're also going to take these two handles here, and I'm going to subdivide. We could leave it at this for now, just so I could show you like what I'm talking about. But for now, what I'm going to do is, just so it like looks a little bit better, I'm going to subdivide those 2 points and bring that one down so we've got like a nice diamond shape. Then I'm actually going to rotate, and you got to be careful, mindful how you rotate. It's kind of hard to see, but if I zoom in a bit on this handle, you see if I rotate on the Z, it looks like it's doing this twisting function there. Yeah, there. And so it has to like rotate like all the way around. So it's not a big deal. Just like if you see it kind of doing that where they're crossing over, just rotate it out the other way. Curves are volatile. Just be mindful. So I'm going to rotate this one out 90 degrees like that as well. And then what I'm going to do is I could scale these up a bit so we could like round out these edges. Oops. A little too much there. Something like that. I can scale these up a bit. So we've got like this nice rounded shape, right? And I'm going to bring this in, something like that. Bring this in, something like that. And I'll leave it like this for now. We're going to make some more adjustments, but for now I'm going to leave it like this. And then let me just go into right orthographic, make sure it's all still flat. Because if it wasn't, if like say this one at some point gets like curved out like this. In fact, actually, let me just make sure I do that. So if you see one that got like curved out like this or something, just go into that orthographic. So if it's this one here along the x-axis, just go into the right and rotate, you know, to snap it back. If it was one of these ones that's kind of runs parallel with the or excuse me, I had it backwards, so this one runs parallel with the y, so you'd run it along the you'd rotate along the x or whatever. But if this one here runs parallel along the x, and it was like kind of tilt it out like that along the y, then just rotate it back along the y to snap it back. And then you can even hit A to select everything, S scale 0, hit enter. You're not going to see any difference there because they're good, but that sometimes works. So anyway, with that general shape there, I'm going to select this, and it's going to you're going to want to zoom out because it's going to blow this curve up. But we're going to come over here to under the bevel with it set to object and our curves properties, right? We're going to select this eyedropper tool and click that, and it's going to blow it up, right? Like a big old balloon. So we can take our rounded curve that we had created here, and we can just scale this in, right? Scale it way down. Now we're getting something like this. And now obviously the shape is the same as if I would have left it at round and just put depth in it, but I'm not trying to keep it as a circle. I just wanted to keep it as a circle just for the sake of saying, you see how I would used a pipe as a kind of like to describe what we were looking at. So that's what it's doing. It's like using this shape is kind of like, imagine really what you're doing is you're creating the shape of the end cap is really what you're doing with that other curve. You're just creating this end cap shape, and then the rest of it follows suit of that shape, of course, right? So that's the best way that I can describe how the bevel curve, that's what we'll refer to this as. We'll refer to this as our bevel or depth or profile curve, whatever you want to refer to it as. And then now, I still would like to change the shape, and in fact, I'm probably going to just do that now. It's going to be hard to kind of see it, but I'm going to go ahead and just come over here because it's so small, but we're going to end up scaling it up again momentarily. So what I'm going to do though is I'm going to take both of these, I'm going to bring them in on the X. I'm going to go for like a nice square shape. So I want it to look like a nice, like one of those like square bars, like metal bars that you would see making up a fence. Oops, not on the Z. Hope I didn't do that to anything else. And then we can even scale them up if you want, but try to keep some nice like rounded corners here. I'm not in top orthographic, so that always throws me off. Line this up and grab this one and line that up. That should be good though. It doesn't have to be perfect. It'll work out. So say that gives me this, where now I have like this square end cap here and it follows suit all the way through, right? Looking pretty good. So now what I want to do is I want to add like a little bit of a taper to it, right? Because right now it starts off pretty meaty and it stays meaty to the end. So like I showed before, we have that taper object here. So we're going to add in yet another curve. We'll Shift A, bring in another Bezier, I don't know. Rotate this one on the Z so it snaps in there nice and straight. We can scale that sucker down. We'll take this end here and scale that down. And then I will also, here, I'm going to grab this one and move it up once on the Y there, and then I'll grab this one and move it right in there. Okay. So if we were to take this curve as it is and assign this as the taper to this, then our object's going to disappear. I don't know, I can't really accurately describe how the taper object works. It's just something you got to play with. I don't have like a neat little way of looking at it as I do for that one, because sometimes I feel like it just does some weird things. But basically, for the most part, the best way to look at it is if this end here, and it's not, I think it's flopped, but like let's just say this end is this end of our curve and this end is that end of our curve. And so somehow we're gonna this just seems so dumb. I'm gonna rotate this in for like 90 degrees for now to start, just like that. And I'll show you what's gonna happen here. So we'll select this, we'll come over here to taper object, and we'll take our eyedropper and select that. And you'll see it's gonna shrink it way down. And then we'll grab our other curve, our bevel curve, right? And we'll scale that up. There we go. And actually, I did have it right. I had it backwards. I was thinking it was backwards. So no, that end of this taper curve is representative of like this end of our curve, and this end is representative of this one. So as I was saying, if I were to keep this straight like this, then our curve will ultimately just disappear. But as we kind of do this number, like it's really hard to describe, like, or to explain. I guess it really doesn't even matter either which way we take it. It goes something like this though. But it's like, yeah, like I don't really know how to explain it. Like, because it's like there's no depth to this, but basically as we add that little curve in, like our curve, as it curves out, it's adding in that and it's right now it's working from this end to that one, and so it's kind of building up some thickness, or it's maintaining some thickness. It's already built up, but maintaining it, and then starts to fall off. So it's like visualizing this as a graph, right? But it's like hard to understand, like it's just floating in free space, so it's hard to understand like where the baseline of that graph is. And I guess it's the line between these 2 points would be where that is, right? It just automatically knows like there's an invisible link, a line right between the two. So you don't want to like do some funky stuff like moving it off like this. I mean, you could do that, right? Like that's gonna get you something, but it's easier to just take these nice simple 2 handles and just rotate them. So I'm gonna grab this one because I don't want this sharp kind of taper in here, and I'm gonna rotate this one out as well 90 degrees, just like that. So this is what I want. Yeah, it doesn't look perfect, but this is essentially what I want. I just want some kind of nice you know, like a squared shape with it that's pretty maintained pretty well all throughout, and only starts to kind of really taper right at the points there. Now I've got to fix some stuff going on like right there, but let's see here. I can also take this one because I do want it to maybe taper out a little bit more on the other end, maybe just a little bit. Oops, I'm not even rotating on the Z axis. See, it's important to make sure you know what you're doing here. So I'll just like rotate it out, something like that, like 45 degrees. I'm gonna grab this one here, and we'll scale, let's scale that in, something like that maybe, seems pretty good. And now, we'll come in here and we can clean this stuff up, right? So how we're gonna do this is we'll take this one here and we can bring it up on the Z, and then we can scale it, something like that. Now this might affect this one here, so we just have to like adjust accordingly, just kind of give everything a little bit of space. Let's actually just select everything and move it over on the X, so it's kind of out here a little bit like that. And you know, you can continue to work on it however you like. You can bring this out if you want it to have like a little bit of a better elbow in there, you know. Continue to work on it until you are satisfied, although it looks like I screwed something up. Or, oh no, I didn't. This has been screwed. Okay. So I just need to rotate on the X. This one got screwed from when I did that subdivision. So let me see here if I can't delete that for a moment. It shouldn't have been, but I guess it was. Now I'll grab these and subdivide. Grab this. There we go. Okay. I must have, you know, not been paying attention. Like I said, it happens all the time. It takes time to really get used to working with these damn curves. Okay, now I'm gonna grab all of this and just kind of bring it out a little bit, something like that. And then we'll bring this in, something like that. We'll take this and kind of curve it out a little bit more, or scale it out, just so it's something like that. And I don't mind having like some sharpness in there because this is coming right off of a flat edge, and I want this to kind of look like it's a square metal bar. So I don't want it to have like too much of like a super smooth organic kind of curve to it. I personally want it to have a couple of kinks in there, a little bit of imperfections, because it's going to kind of look better with the overall theme. But there we have it. We've got this, and we can, you know, there's more we can do here, right? Like obviously, you know, to really finish this out, we could. And sometimes I'm gonna set the origin here. Sometimes this is going to behave pretty weirdly, like when we shift D to duplicate this and say we want to rotate it along the X 90 degree, or excuse me, 180 degrees. So we can flip this upside down, and I'm going to bring this right in here somewhere. Sometimes when we do that, we'll receive some pretty undesirable results, just something to kind of look out for. And if that is the case, like if it seems like it's warping your curve when you go to do these duplications, I'm going to duplicate this, and I will rotate it on the Y. Can I remember anything? Rotate it on the Y 180. There we go. Bring it over on the X. Bring it down on the Z. And then, oops. Shift deduplicate, rotate on the Z. There we go. Just like that. Okay. But if at any point when you want to do any of those duplicates and rotate and stuff, if it warped out your curve, then you just select your curve, make sure that you're committed and that you're happy with the curve. You could even Shift D to duplicate it and bring it off over here, and so that one's still a curve. Because what you could do is you can select one, and you can right click and come over here to convert to mesh, and now it's no longer a curve. It does not apply like those curve properties. These objects over here have no influence over it, nothing. So now it's its own thing. It's its own mesh, right? And whatever changes we made to it as a curve are now stapled. Like they are there, they're permanent. So that's why I say, like, if you end up deciding that you want to make any adjustments, you keep the curve and then you can work on it from there. And also what I like to do for this is to like really fill it out is I will take my duplicated curve here, and I will first of all, I think, let's see here, I think actually I don't need to worry about any of it. Sometimes curves can be really annoying. I'm going to take these two here, and I'm going to shift D to duplicate, bring it over here on the X, and I'm going to rotate it on the Y 90 degrees, something just like that. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do with this one, or sorry, with these still selected, I'll hit P and separate so it's its own curve, and I'm going to remove the taper, something like that. And then I'm going to take this, and then I'm going to rotate, or actually I don't think I need to rotate that at all, actually. Ignore me. We're going to scale this in though, yeah, because we have to scale it pretty darn far. Oh, right, of course, I have to, let me convert these to meshes real quick, because it still has an influence over these. See what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? And if I wanted, I could come over here just so, like, I don't know, but I'll leave it. It doesn't matter. I can delete that one now for all I care. But I'm going to scale this in. And it sucks because it's got to go pretty far now since I removed the taper, but I don't want a taper on this one. And I don't have to do it with the, let me see, maybe I do. I was going to say, I don't think I have to do it with the bevel object. I think I can do whatever scaling I want to do just right here. So I scaled it in on the Y, and then I can scale it on the Z as I see fit, right? And then so yeah, this piece I'll just bring over here. Looks like we need to do a little bit more scaling. Something like this. And I'll just like slot this in, bringing it out, something like this. There we go. And then you can duplicate that, bring it over on the X, and just something like that. There we go. Perfect. Oh, looks like this one come over a little bit on the X. There we go. Perfect. There we go. See, and I think it looks pretty nice with the little imperfections, right? I think those little kinks in there actually give it a little bit more character, considering what this is, right? And especially in conjunction with this like funky looking thing, right? I think it actually looks pretty nice. And you could take it a step further by like adding in, you know, from this point, whatever you want. You can build out the pole or whatever, the post. I like to take a circle for this bit up here, and I like to scale this in. Bring it up on the Z here. Bring it down a little bit, something like that. Tab into edit mode with vertices select. I'll E to extrude and bring this down, something like this. Perfect. And then with face select, I'll grab this loop of faces here, and I'll just E to extrude, S to scale, and bring it out, something like that. And A to select everything and rotate on the Z, just so that this curve like is in between two edges here. And then with edge select, I can hold Alt and left click there, whoops, and then Shift and Alt and left click there, and then just bring that out on the X and just kind of make it generally look like it's gripped on there, right? I can do that on both sides. See, it's that rotating on the Z, aligned it on both ends here. Whoops. So I can bring that out on the X just like that. And then just Shift D, duplicate it, bring it down here. Shift D, duplicate, bring it down here. Could probably make it a little less thick there on the oh, I didn't whoops. Duplicate. Yeah, something like that. And you know, obviously there's a lot of adjustments that can be made. It doesn't need to be quite out as far right here for these parts, so you can do that. You know, at this point we're not even doing stuff with curves anymore, so I would say that's pretty much it. The last note that I have when it comes to this is once we've converted it to a mesh, specifically I'll take a look at these ones, so I'll go ahead and convert this to a mesh, is you know, you don't have to do this by any means. Like, it's fine. I've made points in other videos about reducing topology and poly count. I wouldn't even worry about that, honestly. I only make the point because for myself personally, I try to always keep in the habit and in practice of how I would go about reducing the poly count on pretty much everything I work on, only because I want to keep that practice. I want to be in the practice. practice, so that if there ever comes a day where I have to reduce the poly count of an object, I know what I'm doing. So it's just a good thing to keep in practice of, but I would definitely suggest that you always kind of keep a duplicate that has the original poly count. And just, it's just things to keep in mind. It helps you visualize better when you're starting out. This is by all means not something you have to do, but what I'll usually do with this sometimes is not delete the vertices. I'll go in here and I'll just like dissolve edges like that, especially for these ones. Like I would do this for these ones just because, like, you don't have to go through all this extra work right here at all, but these are doing nothing. It's not even necessarily about reducing poly count for anything other than the fact that it just doesn't do anything for those shapes, It doesn't. They're just straight bars. They only need the 2 edge loops at the top and bottom, unless of course you wanted to, let's say we'll take this one and convert it to a mesh, take this one and convert it to a mesh, and I guess we should like join it, unless of course you wanted to like take one of like some of these edges here and like extrude and like create some like sidebars or something. If you wanted to do something like that, then keep some of these edge loops in here, but just don't get hung up on it. When you hear me talk about like reducing like poly count and stuff like that, honestly, do not sweat it. Don't even worry about it. I would say that it's not something really that you got to worry about unless you're literally working with something that's got like a billion polys, and especially if it's not like like a world. It's just like a trash can. And it's got like some absurd number of poly count. So I wouldn't even sweat it. I just make the note in my videos because it's something to keep in practice. It's not something that you should be sweating over. I would throw it to the wind. Just throw it to the wind. Don't worry about it until you know you have to, and you pretty much will know when you have to. So don't even worry about it. And when you have to, then you'll know how. And it's not going to be this thing that you have to fear. It's really not a big deal. It's super easy, like reducing topology. They have automated ways, or reducing poly count and cleaning up your topology. They have automated ways. Some of them work pretty good. I have one that will just like remesh stuff, which can help me with reducing poly count and just kind of cleaning up topology, but I find it to be it's hit or miss, and that sucks because that costed money. But yeah, nothing is going to really ever compare to doing it manually. So just get into the practice of like really understanding the flow of your topology, and how you would remove stuff, or how you would manually kind of maybe turn quads to tries, or vice versa, whatever. But yeah, that's going to be a wrap on this one. I really hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something from this. I know that for myself personally, like getting into the habit of like using curves to try to create out some more complex geometry. Not that this is super complex or anything. This was pretty simple, but just to show how you can kind of get some nice, interesting shapes that are a little bit more difficult to create when just trying to extrude out and rotate and scale from a cube or whatever. This is just one method. Again, there's no right way of doing anything, and in fact this is only one method of achieving this kind of geometry with curves. There's other methods when it comes to using curves, but yeah, that's going to be enough out of me. So thank you very much.